Another gentleman from New York, Mr. Lawler, is recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Gruenberg, just to follow up on that line of questioning, yes or no, should the FDIC insurance limit be raised?
Let us do the work on this and then come back to you with a report.
Well, in the 2008 collapse, we raised it from 100 to 250,000. We made it permanent in 2010. It has not been raised since then. Do you think it should be raised?
I don't know the answer to that question right now, Congressman.
Okay. Did the Fed, the FDIC, and the Treasury have the tools needed to deal with this crisis when you were made aware of the situation with SVB? Do you all believe, yes or no, that you had the tools needed to deal with this?
Yeah, yes, we have the tools we need.
Yes?
I agree, yes.
Yes?
I agree, we had the tools to
Okay.
prevent a
Did the Fed, the FDIC, and the Treasury have the tools needed to prevent it? Yes or no?
I think that's a very difficult question to answer. I don't have a yes or no answer for it. I think we can do better at supervision and regulation, but whether we could have prevented the collapse in 24 hours of this institution, I don't know the answer to that.
I agree with Michael's point, but from a supervisory basis, I think there was an opportunity.
I'm sorry, Congressman, can you repeat your question?
Yes or no? Do you think the Treasury had the tools needed to prevent this from happening
The Treasury had the tools to use the systemic risk exception
and used it?
and recommendation to prevent a crisis.
So the FDIC and the Treasury do believe it. The Fed, not sure yet. But so in that case, do you think the Federal Reserve failed here in its role?
I think fundamentally, as I've said, it's the responsibility of bank management to run the bank. The bank managers failed in basic risk management.
Right, but you provided, the Federal Reserve and the San Francisco Fed provided guidance, provided notices, and failed to follow up on that, correct?
I would say that there was follow-up. The question is whether the follow-up was stringent enough, and that's part of the review we're looking at.
But stringent enough really means that the individual people may or may not have done the job that they were supposed to do, correct? Because if you give the notice and you reach out, isn't it incumbent on the individual supervisors to actually follow up and make sure that the bank is doing what it needs to do?
It's incumbent on the bank to take the actions that the supervisors are directing them to take, and it's incumbent on the supervisors to check on that.
Did the supervisors fail to check on that?
No, I didn't say that. What I said is that it's incumbent on the supervisors to do that. I think it's a
Did they do that?
I think it's a legitimate and fair question to ask whether they were stringent enough, whether they used enough tools to force the bank managers to do what was obviously right.
With respect, that is semantics. Did they do the job they were supposed to do? Did they follow up?
The reason I'm having difficulty answering the question is I believe they did follow up, but the bank managers did not perform on the job, and that's why we're looking.
Were California and New York regulators equipped with the appropriate tools to handle this? Or should these banks, specifically SVB, given their size, been federally chartered instead of state chartered?
I think that our country benefits from having a wide diversity of kinds and sizes of institutions and the diversity of chartering authorities that we have, so I'm not recommending that we change that.
Okay. When did any of you first speak with Superintendent Harris regarding Signature Bank? Just date, please.
I'd want to check the record on that if I may. I will come back to you. I just want to be sure we're accurate.
Okay. Do either of you know when you first spoke to Superintendent Harris?
I do not. I mean, Signature Bank is an FDIC in New York state-regulated institution, but I don't know when I first had a conversation about it.
Okay. Chairman Gruenberg, when was the decision made to close Signature Bank, and what criteria were used to determine whether or not Signature Bank met the systemic risk exception?
Those are two questions, Congressman. The decision to close the bank is the authority for the state, and the state made that decision on Sunday. And what was the question in regard to the systemic risk exception?
What criteria was used to determine that?
Oh, well, I think we had before us the a failure of two institutions, both Silicon Valley and Signature, and we also had before us evidence of significant liquidity stress at other institutions, and we had data in terms of deposit outflows, and I think that was basically the data we relied on in making this
If the
judgment.
chair will submit that data for the record and answer for this, would you be willing to do that? The data
Yes, of course.
related to systemic risk designation.